Welcome to the Colma Historical Association Museum, located in Colma at the corner of Hillside Boulevard and F Street. The building was built in 1911 and originally housed the waiting room for the Mount Olivet streetcar that came up from El Camino Real to bring mourners and visitors to the cemetery. It also housed the office until 1964, when the office was moved to the cemetery proper. In 1994, the building was donated by Tom Atwood to the town of Colma for their historical park and community center. One of the more interesting artifacts that we have on the property is the original bell that was located in the tower right above us here. It would be used to call the cemetery workers when the mortuaries would bring in the bodies to be buried. Now, come and join us for a very interesting tour of the Colma Historical Museum.
Welcome to the History Room of the Colma Museum. I'm Maureen O'Connor. I'm a docent and a member of the Board of Directors. When you step into the museum, you first of all see the opening exhibit, which focuses on the Historical Association. And I'd just like to point out our founding members here. In the top row is Alice Ledkavich, Dorothy Hillman, and Mary Brodson. And below on the front row are Pat Hatfield and Frances Liston. We have a list of all of our founding members, and above that, a tribute to the railroad, which is one of our focuses here at the museum. We have exhibits on the various peoples who have lived in Colma, starting off with the Ohlone Indians, who gave us our name. Colma, in their language, means moon, and we don't know why this was labeled moon section by them, but I will say that the moon coming up over San Bruno Mountain is certainly spectacular. As we travel around the room, there are exhibits on the Spanish, the Irish, German, Italian, and the post-World War II multi-ethnic blending of cultures. I'd like to point out a portrait of our first female mayor, Rena Valerga, who was actually born in Colma on the Rosaya Ranch in 1907. And here is a map of Lawndale, which was our first name when we incorporated in 1924. Moving on around the room, we have a collection of office equipment, beginning with the Colma Town Hall's first computer from 1983, complete with a set of floppy disks. And then, quickly moving over a bunch of typewriters, we'll go to this beautiful old cash register that at one time was in a business on Mission Road. It's circa 1902. One more thing in this room is this ball of tin foil, which was reminiscent of the saving of tin foil for the war effort. All of this tin foil came from the inside lining of cigarette packages. We'll make a quick trip into the gift shop, but mainly for two exhibits, one of which is the button exhibit, started in the early 1960s, and you can probably find an opinion on any topic that you're interested in. Finally, we have an exhibit of old cameras, all of whom at one time belonged to a Colma resident. The oldest is this very small Eastman Kodak pocket camera from 1895. And it goes all the way down to video equipment from fairly recently. If you're a camera buff, you'll enjoy that exhibit. So thank you for joining me in the History Room and in the gift shop. And now you'll be moving on to meet Perky Ramroth in the library.
Welcome. I'd like to take some time now to show you Colma Museum's library. I'm Perky Ramroth, and I'm one of the docents here, and I'm a member of the board of directors. Please come on into our museum's library. The first thing you'll notice when you come into our library, we are welcoming you for the first time, is that we will show you a 10-minute film, which is a brief capsulization of the history of Colma. So you can sit and relax right here in our library room and watch our film. As we come around the museum's library to these bookshelves, these are binders that our docents and our volunteers have assembled over the many years, which document the early families of Colma, our famous underground residents, of which there are many, and the transportation system in San Mateo County. So you're welcome to thumb through these binders and see the beautiful pictures and the biographical sketches. Coming around to this side of the library room, we have some nice poster presentations about the school district and a lovely painting of one of our early milk trucks that was used by Witt's Dairy. On this bookshelf area, we have wonderful reference materials for you to enjoy, biographical sketches of many of the famous underground residents, such as Wyatt Earp, Joe DiMaggio, and many, many more. And then reference materials about the state of California, San Mateo County, Colma itself, all of our cemeteries, and finally the transportation system, of which we're so happy to be a part of. The last part of our museum room is devoted to our school district. We are part of the Jefferson Elementary School District and the Jefferson Union High School Districts. We've had a wonderful collection of yearbooks donated by graduates, and we have memorabilia from Jefferson High School. So I hope you will come and join me in the museum's library and take advantage of our reference materials. Thanks.
This is the cemetery room. One of our main displays in the cemetery room is Victorian garb that would be worn by mourners. These are from the late 1800s and would be worn by women who would usually wear them for 1 year after the death of the family member of one of their loved ones. We also have some research items for San Francisco cemeteries and for Colma cemeteries. And also free cemetery information pamphlets, list of famous people buried in Colma, and maps of the cemeteries. One of the more interesting items we have in the cemetery room is a traveling undertaker's table. This would be used by undertakers that would go from town to town, and those towns would not have a formal mortuary, and the bodies would be put on this table and embalmed, ready for burial. This table dates from 1886. We have items here from Colma monument companies that play an important part in the history, and also of San Francisco mortuaries. Over 156,000 bodies were relocated from San Francisco in the 1920s through the 1940s, and we have a display here of some of the items from San Francisco cemeteries. We also have quite a collection of funeral memorabilia. These are mostly from the late 1800s and early 1900s. We have items from each of the 17 Colma cemeteries, photographs and different printed items. We also have a large artist rendering of the very large Holy Cross Mausoleum. It looks quite different now, though. And two historic photos from Cypress Lawn Cemetery, dating from the late 1800s, early 1900s, and from Mount Olivet, now known as Olivet Memorial Park, from the early 1900s. Two interesting items that we have are two actual tombstones from the Laurel Hill Cemetery in San Francisco. One from 1887 and one from 1856.
Just off the Century Room is one of the most popular exhibit areas of the museum, containing items one would find in an old Colma household in the early mid-20th century. The first thing you would see would be called an ice box, and this was the to the refrigerator. And what it was, you would put your perishables in there, and you would have commercial ice delivered, and then you would put the block of ice in there, and that would keep all your perishables refrigerated. The next item you would have would be a stove, and you probably wouldn't have gas delivered to your house, so you would put wood, chop up wood and put it in there and burn the wood, and that would provide the heat so you could do your cooking. Connected to the stove with the heat was a tank, and that would heat your water, and that would give you hot water. The next item, and this is from an actual Colma house that was demolished, a cabinet that you would keep all your dinner plates and different items for your kitchen. You would probably have a washing machine. These were called ringer washing machines. For entertainment in the kitchen, you would have an old-fashioned radio. There were no TVs in those days. And you would have probably a phonograph that didn't run on electricity, but you would crank the motor and the record would be amplified through a horn. You would probably have what was called a Hoosier cabinet. This would be to store all your flour and sugar in your cooking items. If you were a seamstress, you would probably have a sewing machine, and they weren't electric in those days. You would power the motor by a pedal, and that would do your stitching for you.
Hi everybody, welcome to the police hallway, and we'll be going in a few minutes here to the fireman's room. Just like to show you a picture up here on the wall, starting out with the police memorabilia. This is a picture from 1924 showing our old constable, Silvio Landini. He's behind the wheel of the car there, and then next to him is the new marshal, Joe Cavalli. As we walk down, you can notice on the wall, there's lots of photos here, group photos from the police department over the years. This is a great patch collection here to look at when you come to our museum, from Art Deloso, former chief. As San Mateo County patches from other law enforcement entities in the state of California. We have photos from all our chiefs through the years, starting from Constable Landini, working up to retired chief now, Kirk Stratton, who retired last year. Missing from the photo right now is our current chief, John Muncie. We walk in here to the Colma Fire Department room. The Colma Fire Department started out in 1925 as a strictly volunteer department. And back in the 1970s, it became a paid call. So if you responded to a call, you got paid. If you notice up on the walls, many, many pictures in this room, not only banquets that fire department personnel would have, but muster competitions, which were friendly competitions, parades that fire department personnel would attend. This is a great letter from 1911. This is an original. It's different townspeople asking for a fire department in this area. And again, it was established in 1925. In this display case, you'll see belt buckles, memorabilia. There's even a group photo at the 75th anniversary of the Great Earthquake in San Francisco. And the photo was taken in San Francisco. Many, many fire departments there responded. A couple old radios down there, Motorola radios from the days. And we'll end up, just want to show you, this bell was from a fire station, old fire station from 1940. And it was donated to the museum by the Garibaldi family. And the Garibaldi family, they took possession of the bell after that fire station was closed, and they would use it in their nursery to call workers to come in for lunch. I'll ring it for you. There we go. Now we have a better system in town. But thank you all. Thanks everyone for joining us on this virtual tour of the Colma Historical Museum. We look forward to seeing everyone in person someday soon. In the meantime, you can follow us on our website at colmahistory.com, on Facebook at Colma Historical Association, on Instagram at Colma History, and on Twitter at Colma Historical.